So the first thing we do with any client is just go in and say, what do you want to do? Where do you want to get to? Because some people haven't really discussed that. You wouldn't get in a car, would you, without knowing which destination? What I don't want is to have these entrepreneurial people being data-led. You want them to be data-informed. Most businesses are suboptimally run because there's been so much data flying around for 10, 15 years, but no one's gone and rolled their sleeves up and gone to actually go and make this make sense. There's a lot of really, really humble business owners who don't realise how brilliant they are. More often than not, actually, they've been under-ambitious. So get the vision right and then give insight to business owners, because good entrepreneurs will make better decisions with better insight, better information available. It's a very simple premise. Once you've got the insight, you then go into, right, how do we make this business more productive? And largely productivity is either a people problem or a process problem. Most businesses is that when things aren't going particularly to plan, they always go to sort of rush to innovation first. They always rush and go, let's do something differently. Let's launch a new market. Let's launch something else. Sometimes that's the right answer, but more often than not,
Just sort your margin out in the one you're in.
pretty much.
Hi, I'm Mark Costello, Chief Executive of Meshed, and this is another episode of When It Matters, where Elle and I are joined by James Davenport from MKS. Hi, James.
Hello.
How are we?
Very well, thank you. How are you both?
Very well. So nice to have you
That's
for
lo-
season 2.
It's lovely to be here. It's I've come very far as we know. So
Yeah. So let's kick off and talk about James then. So, what did you do at uni, and how did you get into accountancy?
yeah, it's a good question. So I often find that people who go into accountancy have got some sort of parental influence somewhere, or someone who does numbers, whereas my dad's a scientist and mum's a nurse. So there was no family pressure at all. Dad was very much just sort of go into the city and make some money, and don't be sort of constantly trying to raise funds for your pet research projects or trying to cure heart disease, because it's it's still here 40, 50 years of however long he's been there and professoring and whatever. So I very much enjoyed history at school. So thought, do what you enjoy, go to university, do a very vague subject, and at the end you'll be able to do something with it. Keep your options open. And I thought very much sort of the time, perhaps naively, that you do a good degree from a good university, and then the job offers will just literally be coming in.
Raining down on top of
Yes.
you.
They talk about the milk round of people coming round to your university, and even going to quote unquote a good university. It wasn't necessarily easy. Second, third year, going, how do I get into the world of work? So I just I remember I think it was New Year's Eve in my third year, just sort of going, I haven't got anything lined up. I probably better work it all out. And someone on my football team was an accountant, and I just thought, well, that sort of ticks two of my boxes, which are sort of wear a suit and something with maths, because I'm very good at that's decent with maths at school. And so I thought, right, well, I'll go and apply. How do I get in? You Google. Accountancy Age has the league table of all the accountancy firms, and you start at the top and you work your way down. Kingston Smith was 19th, so you can do the maths for how many opportunities I didn't get before I got my offer, and just went through the process. Thought, I'll give it a go and see what happens.
What year was that?
2013.
Right. Okay. So just still kind of close to the credit crunch, which just sucked graduate trainee programs out of everywhere.
Absolutely, I can claim that my inability to get a job was based on the market, not my own sort of lack of ability to communicate properly. So yeah, I can just about make that sort of claim, but I think in reality, it's so hard, isn't it? I think, and I've got a lot of sympathy for people who are sort of trying to get into the world of work, because you just get, you apply, it's all now AI and whatever, and you get half an hour to make an impression, and you're 18, you're 21, and you've no idea what they're looking for necessarily.
No.
Yeah. So that really sort of, when I do a lot of interviewing now for people coming in, and that really impacts on the way I interview, because I'm always sort of just going in there saying, look, this is not just for me to work out whether you're right for us, it's for you to work out whether we're right for you. Because I remember a lot of interviews going, and I look back and go, that was not the right thing, and I don't quite know why I got rejected, but you're glad in hindsight, aren't you? And so it's but it's I think that one of the things is you get an opportunity and you run with it. And I sort of joined the firm in 2013, and just 3 years of training, and I got everything out of my training contract that I didn't get at university in terms of on-the-job experience, a qualification that when you got to the end of it meant that people were actually interested in you, wanting to employ you and it was where I thought I would be after university. So no regrets at all, and just feel very fortunate to have stumbled into it because there was no grand plan. It was just give it a go and hope for the best.
And you've been at MKS for 12 years now, and you're a partner.
Yeah.
For 12 years. Like, talk us through, I guess, the journey to kind of, so went in at literally graduate level, trainee, up to partner.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty impressive. Tell us a little bit
I think it's as with anything, it's all much of a muchness. It's just people, isn't it? Really. I mean, I remember when we moved offices. So we left our offices in 2022, and you're sort of looking back and you're sort of going, right, I've been at this place for however many years, and you sort of go, oh, this is quite sad. But then you just remember actually, it's not the building, isn't it? It's the people that you remember. So you're just and some of them were coming with you, some of them had already left. So in reality, it wasn't really particularly sad at all. It was just another normal day. And I think that's, the progression that you make through a professional services firm is an element of your own hard work, aptitude, and how diligent you are. But also it's the fortune of meeting like-minded people who
you need a bit of luck,
you
right?
do.
You do. In anything in life.
And the people who take you under their wing, give you that opportunity. I think everyone can probably tell really good stories of life in a business where people have pushed them forward and other people have pushed them back. And I just think that I'm fortunate to have been in an environment where I happened to just get on with people who I clicked. And you can probably point to 3 or 4 people throughout my time who've been brilliant at just pushing me to the next bit, and never really coming across anyone who everyone always sees in business, don't they? Who are just Debbie Downers who suffocate the life out of it and have got their own problems and project onto you. So, but that's to a certain extent. That's also just because you sometimes you just have to get on with it and
grind it out.
Yeah.
So when you think about the younger people who are joining your organisation now, what do you think the average day for that person looks like in comparison to what it looked like when you joined it first? Because the world's moved
massively, and so and that you already. I mean, 12 years is a long time, and it's a very short period of time, isn't it? In terms of a career, we're all going to be working till we're 85, 90, if not longer. So to some extent, it's a footnote, isn't it, in your life? But we're already at that stage now where you're going back, in my day, this is what we did. We were out on site, we were seeing clients. Now it's a little bit more virtual. It's a lot harder, to be honest. It's really harder to build relationships in the current environment because as a junior, I'd just go straight in there and I'd be sat making tea for the partners, and they would all know who you were because you were in the office every day, and they would form their own caricatures of what you were like. You built relationships a lot easier. It's a lot harder to build relationships, especially with so much stuff virtually. Teams, Zoom is wonderful for giving you sort of breadth of relationship, but it doesn't give you that depth.
I agree.
And so it's that's the challenge we've got with people coming in at the moment, is to keep that.
And do the younger people that you bring in now, do they work in the office every day, or is it 2 days a week, or how do you think about that?
We've got various offices around London. We've also got some in Ireland as well, and so every team takes a slightly different approach. And so most people are sort of hybrid and do a couple of days in, and some teams try and force it a bit more to make it happen. But it's just the difficulty of office space is very expensive now, and so we during the pandemic we thought we were going through an office move, and we thought let's get a really nice sort of higher spec office because no one will want to come in. And then suddenly we get this nice higher office, spec office, and suddenly everyone wants to come in because it's a nice office. You're like, oh Christ, we can't fit everyone in now. So actually, getting that challenge of getting people in the same place is quite difficult. And for me, it's like there isn't really much difference from my existence. Prior to the pandemic, I was in the office most of the time if I needed to be. Then I was out seeing clients, or I was at home because I had to let someone in to fix the dishwasher. So that's not changed, but physically getting everyone in one space is harder. And so I think especially in London, it's not as easy because people are travelling, and people now really sort of think 50 quid on the train to go and speak to James in the office. Is that worth it?
Let's not get onto trains because that will be the end of the podcast.
That's the trouble. The whole culture, isn't it? You used to have people who would commute every day in from Reading or every day on the slog, and then now they're just sort of like, that's silly, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I remember when I came down to London, and was 26, 27, a while ago. Let's just leave it at a while ago. And all of the younger people in the office would live in central London, and most of the older people were commuting in from the home counties. And I couldn't believe the commutes that people had, like 5 days a week. Just wild.
It's absolutely mad, isn't it? And you just sort of think all that time that's been spent, and it's changed everything, hasn't it? Because psychologically, you used to have that headspace for you. Maybe if it was an hour, you had an hour just to sort of zone out of work and zone back into home life. Whereas now you sort of shut down and off you go. And so, I used to remember stories of people would try and deliberately elongate their commutes just so that they had more time to themselves before they got home to see family.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's just sort of like you're with your family all the time, isn't it? And it's I don't know. I just think I remember when everyone was sort of fleeing London during the pandemic and trying to go further and further away. You just thought ultimately you're just going to outsource yourself somewhere else, aren't you? Like if your job can be done on a screen, then why not a screen somewhere else in the world? Why not buy robots and things? So you've got to try and keep that humanity whilst also making it commercial, because it is as fun as it is going out seeing my clients all the time. It does sort of take it out of you when you're traveling to see people or they're coming into the office to see us. So
yeah, I'm always quite interested in how companies are like maintaining and still kind of building a great culture when people aren't in the office as much. I mean, we're fully remote. I mean, I actually see you every week, to be honest. But we are a fully remote company, and I'm always quite intrigued about how people can build a culture. And obviously, it's not, the fact that you've been with MKS for 12 years sounds like a real testament to the culture that they've created.
None of us like writing CVs. There's loads of partners. We've got quite a lot of homegrown partners, and it's just sort of like, lazy, can't, and no one else will have us. But yeah, no, there's certainly that. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, but I guess how do you think about, particularly when people are coming into the business and they're going to be remote partially some of the time, harder to get everybody together? Like how has the culture potentially changed? And I guess how do you guys look to create that for people who are coming in new, or people who've been in for a while when you're not all in the office together?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Also, not just in terms of what's going on in the world, but also us as a firm and a lot of the firms in the industry. There's a lot of consolidation. There's certainly an element of there's so much investment being made in technology and in people that there's a lot of aggregation of firms. So we've got bigger. As well as obviously going to this whole remote sort of world that we're living in. So how do you build a culture when we had maybe 400 or 500 people a few years ago, and now it's over 1,000 across many different offices? So it's not just a question for the post-COVID world, but also for us as a firm that's grown quite a lot. And the sort of things we sort of see is that people end up sort of there's a sort of creation of sort of a blob, sort of, which is the firm. And it's just sort of like, I find the team, not necessarily my team, but people around the firm sometimes people saying, oh, the firm. It's like, well, who do you actually think, is this firm that is wronging you? And sort of like, oh, wherever. It's like, is it the managing partner? No, we love Matt. Matt's brilliant. Is it me? No, we love you. It's just, and I think people, as you get bigger and bigger, it's about having those key relationships. And I think the key thing is that in a firm of our size, also of when you're working remotely, the number one thing is that you've got to have at least one person, ideally your line manager, who knows you, understands you, and is invested in what you're doing. And so, how do you actually make that sort of happen? You've just got to recruit the right people and put those people in the right positions, because they will get off their backsides and make it happen and do all the things that get people together, make sure people are contacted. It's just increasingly becoming a people profession rather than a number crunching.
I agree with that. And I think the insurance industry is very similar. And I think that a lot of insurance firms and potential accounts, certainly solicitors, probably need somebody who's just responsible for comms, internal comms, right? And getting that right. Because I think that's how you can keep that culture intact if everybody's working remote. Because the problem, like not the problem, but could be a problem when I was working in the city and working for brokers and about 150, 200 people in one small office space or small enough office space. If somebody was being a bad manager, somebody else would see they were being a bad manager.
Yeah, massively.
How do you manage that now? It's harder, right? So it's about keeping, if the culture is, we don't have a blame culture or whatever it is, but one manager does have that, unless you can see it with your own eyes physically on the floor, then it's more difficult to manage.
It is really, really hard because you're absolutely right. You don't have that visibility. You don't, and also you don't know when people are struggling because you would see it. And you had back when we were all in the office together, you had presenteeism, didn't you? You had people just turning up and looking busy and making
walking
sort of
about with a piece of paper.
busy, and which was what it was. But whereas now you don't, people, especially when you're receiving the people delivering work to you, you see the output, don't you? You don't see the input, which in some ways is good because obviously people measured on delivery, but equally you can't intervene when people are struggling. So you've just got to make sure that you've got small enough teams that no one can go missing, both positively and negatively. So no people can wander off them on their own accord, but equally no one can be left behind. That's it. So I think you've got to try and make sure you've got that clear structure, and you can't have bigger teams beyond. I think it's, I can't remember if it's Amazon who sort of say, once you can't share a pizza together, that team's too big.
Yeah.
I think that's really the sort of the key one.
Yeah, that's American pizza though, right? So like,
is it? I don't know. Yeah.
It's probably 2 pizzas in the UK.
Well, you can't go to Domino's, can you, without getting 2 pizzas anyway? So it's others are available, obviously. But.
Yeah. So how does that cultural shift, which I agree with, how does that bleed into customer expectations, and how you guys position the business?
The way I sort of look at it is that if we're not in front of our clients, they have no idea what value we're bringing. And so it's not a particularly revolutionary idea, isn't it? But the whole sort of concept of charging by the hour is just, it's limited, isn't it? The model is limited. It's great for us as a way of measuring profitability.
Yeah.
But it relies on people paying it, so it's just sort of, when you've got a commodity that, there's a price for it, the market's got a price for it, hasn't it? So it doesn't really matter how many hours you charge. That's the price that it is. So we need, and what I try to do with our team is to get our team in front of our clients, because in order to best help them achieve what they want to achieve, you've got to know them. Like with the team, haven't you? Professional services firm, we're about our people and we're about our clients. You've got to know your team so you know how they work and how to get the best out of them. You've got to know your clients so that you know what's going on, what are the opportunities and what you need to do in order to help get them there. So trying to get people front and center in front of clients rather than sort of hiding behind spreadsheets or whatever one would do traditionally. That's one of the key things for me and my team anyway.
And your team focuses on what?
Our team focuses on essentially what we call growth advisory. So our aim is to help our clients to grow. And by grow, that typically means increase the value of the business to the business owner. Now, value, people sort of immediately go profitability, valuations and whatever. And absolutely, that's one of them. But our particular area of focus on that traditional owner-managed businesses, businesses maybe £1 million in turnover, up to hundreds of millions, 10 employees up to thousands, but crucially, those ones where they're owner managed, they one of their sort of key areas in order to sort of maximize what they're getting out of their life is that the business is everything to them. So they've started the business up, they've run it, it's paid their mortgage, it's paid the mortgage of all their people, and quite often it's their pension, and that's quite a lot of eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people who get into maybe 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s and go, how the hell do I deal with this? And there's so many ups and downs, aren't there, with running a business? It goes well and everything's great. Then you go down and it affects your mental psyche. I know from the elements of sort of business running that we have as being a partner, that if I'm focused on the business, my wife will get very sort of like, you're not here, you're not present. You're always on the clock, because you're always thinking about it, isn't it? You're always thinking about your business. And so it's not just about getting more profitability in the business, although that's one of the key things. It is about giving more time to business owners, because we've only got so much time, haven't we? And also sometimes getting the enjoyment, getting the fun back into running a business, because a lot of people lose that when they get to that stage of they've employed 20, 30 people. They get bogged down in people problems. They started a business as a trader, as a tradesman, and then now they're having to deal with HR problems because they didn't realise whatever, and it's just like you just lose the fun, don't you? That's what our team is sort of focused on doing is to go up and get that. How do we optimally grow every business that wants to grow? Is our sort of problem that we're trying to solve.
And what services surround that? What can you cover off for your customers in that?
So the work that we do directly is just getting under the skin of the business to understand what's actually going on, where they want to get to, and how do we sort of get there. So we do a lot of looking at the internal information, the processes, and even just big picture what the business actually does, to then try and work with the business owner to help them to understand their business better, to then get to whatever destination that they want to be in. We will never know as much as the business owner about their particular business or their industry because they're in it every single day. But we can help businesses to understand their business better. Quite often, because there are so many facets that it comes to running a business, that it is impossible to have all of them within one or two individuals. And just by going in there, doing things in a certain order, you can get so much more value out of what businesses are already going. Because pretty much every business in this country is not run optimally, and it's just because you can't, isn't it? It's never going to be. And there are so many different levers that you can pull to increase that optimization. And if we as a firm are there optimizing those businesses and unlocking the value, then we can start talk about value billing for our time rather than for just charging it by an hour. Sort of.
It's so interesting. And I guess what are the common? I really liked what you said about how most businesses aren't run optimally. What are the kind of common pitfalls here where these kind of blind spots where businesses are all like business owners aren't running their business?
I think this is where having an accountancy background is really, really helpful. And just segueing back to the whole chartered accountant piece, very, very good. I'd always if people don't know what to do, go and do 3 years, learn to be an accountant, because you can just go and do loads of different things. One of the guys in my year went off to become a priest. Other people go into corporate finance. People go run businesses. It's qualification for business, and of course the priesthood as well. And I'm sure there's lots of people in finance who are praying for the various things that they're sort of doing, hoping things don't go wrong with the transactions or audits that they're signing off. But that background, you go into my experience as a trainee was I went into a business and I just picked it apart and went, oh, how does this all sort of work? And profit is ultimately a function of a few different numbers, and in order to maximize that, you need to know how the numbers work. You fundamentally cannot be an accountant in a business and go in and chop things apart, and just go death by numbers. But that base principle is, I think, the foundation for being a really, really successful, optimal business. So, your question was, what are the key things that people do? People just don't make use of the key information that's available to them, because they don't know how to get it, and B, they don't necessarily know what to do with it. So the first thing we do with any client is just go in and say, what do you want to do? Where do you want to get to? Because some people haven't really discussed that. They've been too busy running.
Too busy sprinting on a treadmill, right?
To sit back and go, where are we going?
Yeah.
You wouldn't get in a car, would you, without knowing which destination? But literally, people are just so bogged down in the sort of desperately, I'm driving, how do I drive? I haven't even thought where I'm actually going. And so you just go, right, where do you want to get to? And sometimes you have to explain that where they want to get to is maybe over ambitious. But more often than not, actually, they've been under ambitious. There's a lot of really, really humble business owners who don't realize how brilliant they are. Joys of seeing many businesses is that you can see lots of people who are not very good, and yet some people you go in and you're like, wow, you're absolutely fantastic, and yet you're not getting the full. You're doing well. Let's not not struggling, but you could do so much more if you had these and your LinkedIn and whatever. So get the vision right, and then give insight to business owners, because good entrepreneurs will make better decisions with better insight, better information available. It's a very simple premise, and I sort of learned that as a trainee coming through the firm. If I gave better information to the more senior people, the partners, they would make better decisions, give better advice. So get that information, and most people haven't got a clue how to do it, don't know what it means. So we spend a lot of time with our clients at the start getting them up to speed with what, how the business actually works, how they actually make money. People kind of forget that when they get bigger. It's just sort of very base principles. You buy something for this, you sell it for that. It's not rocket science. But it gets doing it on scale gets harder.
Yeah,
Everything
I
gets
bet.
harder.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of business owners sort of get to that point where they sort of go, I was making more money when it was just me on my own.
Yeah.
I've now got people of 50 and I'm making 50 quid in a Mars bar. And you go, what's happened there? And it's just the team as well. There's an art, because then obviously once you've got the insight, you then go into, right, how do we make this business more productive? And largely productivity is either a people problem or a process problem. People don't know what to do, haven't been told what to do, need a bit of education on what they should be doing. Often well-meaning, but if you're one cog in the thing and you just turn up and do your job every day, you don't necessarily know how you fit in. So you can get much more out of people, and then processes. If you get some insight, you'll see where the log jams are in the system, and you can very quickly identify, where you need to, which levers you need to pull, and what you need to make better in order to get a better output. And the key thing is with I find most businesses is that when things aren't going particularly to plan, they always go to sort of rush to innovation first. They always rush and go, let's do something differently. Let's launch a new market. Let's launch something else. And it's just sort of, and sometimes that's the right answer, but more often than not,
Just sort your margin out in the one you're in.
pretty much. And doing too many things in all those sorts of areas. So that's sort of how we we've put together a growth program for our SMEs, which we just take them through vision, insight, productivity, and then we do innovation. Do it in that order and just follow that sort of process. There's obviously a lot more complex stuff to it, but that's our sort of underlying principle of how we approach a business when we're trying to grow it.
So when you think about the caricature of what an accountant looks like and the roles that they fulfill, none of what you described really fits into that box, right?
No.
Maybe 20 years ago, at least anyway. So what's driving this change? Because I hear it all the time. It's advisory, and I think it's the right thing to do, right? I think that traditional accountants used to sit in all this data that could really help their customers, but because the customer didn't ask, they didn't tell them.
No, you're absolutely right, and it's like, and also but people it's not really accurate to describe what we do as I'm technically a chartered accountant. I'm a member of the ICW.
Yeah.
But describing that accountancy isn't really what we do, and it's helpful for explaining to my grandmother because she understands that, and she's 96.
Yeah, I'm an accountant.
Yeah, 95 in a care home, and it's very, very simple, isn't it? But it's obviously it's helpful in your car insurance because it lowers the premiums. It's less helpful on your dating profile, as I understand it. It's that was all. I've been with my wife longer than I've been at the firm, so I've never had the fortune or misfortune of going on those date profiles. But I understand from our team that they would not present themselves as an accountant on Tinder or other platforms.
Business advisory specialist sounds much sexier, right?
I think finance analyst had the best sort of, like, despite the whole, isn't it, looking for a guy in finance apparently, which
Exactly.
my wife sort of alerts me to these things on
Do you know
TikTok.
this, Mark? I'm not going to sing the song right now, but I'll show you after. It's like, I'm not going to sing it, but it's like a rap song about, I'm looking for a guy in finance, 6 foot, blue eyes.
Yeah, 6'5", I think.
6'5", blue eyes.
Which I'm a bit about
6'5".
Yeah, about 3 inches short. I mean, we are segueing off. I mean, yesterday there was a thing in the which my wife sent me about. There's a nightclub doing 6 foot over for men, 6 foot only. And over evening.
Is that not haters?
I think that's quite
yeah.
not on.
Have a look at it. I mean, it was bizarre. I had to look at it and think it was 1st of April. Those sorts of. It's one of those stories that you sort of think, oh, very, very, very good. But yes, not quite sure I haven't gotten to the dating bits.
Yeah.
But certainly it's accountants have a few what's the phrase, preconceptions, don't you?
Cliches.
Yeah. And it's not really what we do, but I haven't found a better word for describing it. We've played around with a few words, in our team, sort of go, what do we? I think we quite like the word growth dragons, but dragons have connotations of Dragon's Den and Wales, and to a certain extent, that's what we are doing. We are investing our time in businesses because we don't charge by the hour. As I say, we do flat, and then we do it based on success, because we're trying to pivot away from that whole. Market. And then so your question about advisory is interesting, isn't it? Because it's just a word, isn't it? Really, like
it is. However, and here's my point on this, right? So I tell this story, and anybody that watches this, like my mum regularly, will get really bored hearing this story. But I had a friend who owned a kind of niche commercial insurance brokerage in Golders Green, and he had sold this chap travel insurance for 20 years or whatever, like for 200 quid a year. And he came into his business and said, "Do you do commercial property insurance?" He went, "Yeah." And he picked up £180,000 of business. When I met Nick, he thought this was a great story. I was like, "Nick, that's a terrible story. You've been 14 years and you could have been making that revenue for 14 years. And my point is that advisory maybe is just a word, but I think going forward, because people want everything quicker, faster, more efficiently, I think that articulating what advisory means from your firm to your customers is hugely important.
Massively. And like, I think people struggle. I think the challenge, isn't it, is when a word goes round, firms will go, "We must do more advisory. Must do, yes, let's do this, let's do this."
Yeah.
Sort of and people sort of think, "Oh, tax. I'll go and speak to people about how to lower their tax rates." And it's just like, great, whatever. It's all whatever, but it's not really moving the dial. If sort of saying, "Oh, pensions are a great way of mitigating your corporation tax liability." Anything that you can put into ChatGPT or Copilot or whatever and get an answer out of, not really advisory. It's just here's some facts.
But you also have huge amounts of data. That data can be super useful, right? Because it's my opinion, and that our business is all about data, right? I think that data will always tell stories and patterns, right? And it's about taking that data, interpreting that to that particular customer's own data and going, well, what does this tell us about that customer? And how can we help use that data to make them better?
Absolutely. That sort of links back to what I was saying earlier about sort of getting insight to business owners, because what I don't want is to have these entrepreneurial people being data led, because otherwise you numbers on screens. You want them to be data informed. You want them to have all the possible, when you're playing blackjack, you want to count the cards and then make a calculated risk based on what you wanted to do. Because most businesses are kind of gut feel,
yeah,
which is good when the gut feel's good, isn't it? But people don't always.
You can't scale gut feel.
No, you can't quite.
Because the gut feel tends to be the person who formed that business, right?
Yeah.
You can't say have my gut feel when he's higher than the next person.
Yeah. And that's what you want to do at the end, is to realize the value in your business. You can't, if your business is based on your own self, your gut feel, we call them hero businesses. Unless you're willing to be sold, there is no value to that business.
No,
particularly beyond what's on the, what's in the bank and the bricks and mortar maybe. So it's absolutely huge in terms of what you can do. And this is where I sort of go back to, isn't it? Most businesses are suboptimally run because they haven't got access to it. There's been so much data been flying around for 10, 15 years, but no one's gone and rolled their sleeves and rolled sleeves up and gone and go, let's actually go and make this make sense. And that's probably a key component of what we do. It's not the only thing that we do, but it's a vital part. And that's, having that numbers background makes it helpful for us to be, we're not all of us, but I'm quite analytical, sort of prefer spreadsheets to people, but that's the sort of the nature of the beast, isn't it? You have to.
Well, I was going to ask you actually, because we did a podcast way back in season 1 with this guy called David Addison, and he was saying how 50% of the conversations he has with his customers are nothing to do with numbers, and he's more like a therapist. And obviously, bringing tremendous value in terms of translating the data and the numbers into real tangible insights for the business owners. Are you also sometimes the counsellor as well, or do you find that that's happening less?
Yeah, no, massively, because quite often, it's particularly for people when you've got one business owner. If you've got two business owners, they've got a good bounce of each other.
Yeah.
And they've got, and you're still really, really important, but particularly one business owner, a sole business owner, because they can't speak to their other half because they don't always understand, or they may not have another half, but they don't always understand. Also, they don't want you to be on talking about the job. They want you to be present in doing whatever. So you're the person who often understands the business, what's going on. You're in the business to a certain extent. You know all the protagonists, you're there, but also you're out of the business. You're independent. You're their sort of person that you speak to, and so inevitably, you with certain people, you end up becoming their sort of confidant and therapist, and quite often problem solver. That's probably the main one that they sort of come to you, and that's when it sort of gets a bit interesting and a bit fruity sometimes, when they've got personal problems and you go, a bit above my pay grade there, but give it a go. I'm not a practicing GP, but I'm sure I can. No, but and that's because it overlaps. It overlaps massively. The home life. Especially with our market, people who we service. There is a blurred line between their work and their home life because they're often so intertwined.
And they work at home.
Yeah.
Which,
And it's just, what we're trying to do here is to help our business owners is to achieve whatever they want to achieve, and that's not limited to the business excelling. You're trying to get them to where they want to go in life. And getting the business to a certain level is just a means to an end, isn't it? What's the ultimate reason? Why you why doing this? Are you trying to provide for your family or to get another quality of life, whatever it may be? And there are hiccups along the way. Divorce is very difficult. Just the nature of divorce, but from a business perspective, very tricky. And that's not just matrimonial. It's also shareholder divorce as well, isn't it? So sometimes you're dealing with those sorts of problems, and that can be quite grueling. And it's not really numbers or accountants based.
I can imagine it must be so rewarding though when you've had a business come to you stagnant, they're a little bit, can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, and then after they've worked with you guys, they kind of reach their goal. That must be incredibly rewarding.
Absolutely huge. That's the entire reason why I do what I do, and also the team that we've built around. So we sort of set up our own team within the firm, which again, go back to sort of very fortunate to be backed and supported by the other partners. So myself and two other partners, we set up our team to focus on doing exactly what we were doing, and we and also our team of managers as well all get that buzz from helping people. It's problem solving, it's whatever, and you sort of go, right, why are we as we are, and I sort of reflect on it and so go, my mum's a nurse, and so that's and technically speaking, so she's what's known as a saint because she worked in the NHS. So literally, as a child, everyone, even now as an adult, people go, "Oh, you're an accountant." Go, but mum's an NHS nurse. They're like, "Oh, wow, wow," and you can bask in her reflective glory.
Yeah.
And there's a psychology, isn't there? With nurses, in the sense of they're not motivated by wealth or they're by helping people. And there's an element, obviously, in the cold hard capitalist world, profit, money is still a motivating factor, but there's an element of helping people, and that's the most enjoyable thing, and that's why I'm not doing sort of a technical job of preparing a set of accounts, because no one thanks you ever for, wow, it's a nice set of accounts. But
so that's an interesting segue, right? Because this is what I think technology will eventually allow professional services people to do. You sell a service, it's in the ether, right? There's nothing tangible. But I think technology allows us to present the services that we do in a much more coherent way that gives people a feel for what we do. Is that something that you guys are thinking about?
Massively, and the key word there is service. And I've said professional services, and not a lot today. And I find, and this is not just our firm, but every firm that I think very similar. People forget when you're in that professional services firm the word service.
Yeah.
Everyone has a very clear knowledge of what good service looks like. You go to Nando's, you go to KFC, you know what bad service looks like.
Yep.
And yet we forget those very basic things. Someone calls you, you call them back. Someone emails you, just respond, just be human being. And we are providing a service, and technology enables us to provide a much, much, much better service that our clients actually care for, not stuff that they have to have because someone says that you need a set of accounts, you need a tax return doing because you have to pay it. And so we obviously we have to do all these sorts of things, but I very much, me personally and our team, we want to operate in that space of doing stuff that people care about and actually want, just because I like the human interaction of as you sort of said earlier, Elle, just sort of people saying, "Wow, that's really good. You've not necessarily changed my life, but as in you've had a very positive impact because it's come back to what do you want in your gravestone?
Yeah.
Hopefully not 34 as in age, because that's only next year. So probably a bit longer. That's like 104 would be nice on my gravestone. But you think about that. What are you going to be remembered for? And it's like no one really remembered anyone who did a great accounts.
That guy sent me my tax bill 20 years in a row.
Yeah, there aren't many great accountants in history, are there? Like apart from the monk who invented accounting, I can't think of many accountants. There aren't great films about accountants either, are there? Apart from, I haven't watched The Accountant, but
There's certainly none about insurance brokers. I can assure you.
Need to make a mesh.
Yeah.
Netflix.
Yeah, I'm kind of in that same boat as you. Like when you go to dinner parties and people go, "What do you do?" And you go, "I'm an insurance or an accountant." And they go, "We swap places with somebody."
Yeah. But then equally, if I want a quiet evening, you just say it anyway, so that people don't talk to you. So
Absolutely.
So it's nice having the option
Yeah.
of whether you're going to be on or not.
Do you have a favourite story of when you've had a owner-managed business kind of come to you? It's all been a bit of a nightmare, a bit of a mess, and then they've kind of got to where they wanted to go, and you kind of
Yeah, I think
I love these.
I mean, so we worked with a manufacturing business in Manchester. We've worked for him for maybe 5 years, and he bought out his business partner, and then they didn't really know how to do that, but they sort of decided to go separate ways. Didn't know how to do that, so we just helped him out to do that. And he was like, okay, don't know what to do now. And there's so many great business owners, work with so many great business owners, and I always think of these individuals. But when we're talking earlier about there's so many great innovators out there, and they're all bogged down in running of the business that they don't get time to do the very simple things that they're really, really good at, which is thinking differently and working on the product or whatever. So when he first sort of bought it out, it was you see in the eyes, don't you, the sort of the concern and the frustration of, Christ, I've got to now make enough money to pay all these people that I've got employed. You're taking it very, very personally, and getting people out of that mindset of being concerned about going wrong and having the confidence that actually things are going to go right to an extent that you can start making positive decisions rather than worrying about the negative.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that where you sort of go, and you help to bring through the people below. So similar to our sort of, he's got people who've worked on the machines, as it were, from come out of school, and they're building really good careers, vocations. They're making stuff in the UK, which in itself is pretty cool. They're growing in a time. Last year, I don't know about, but last year apparently it was quite miserable. Don't know how you guys sort of felt, but the industry, everyone seemed to be quite miserable in the world. But sometimes I have to sort of remind our team sort of like, we're having a lot of fun here. Not everyone's actually sort of
So it's funny you say that, because I think the economy isn't hugely amazing, but we did throw £500 billion at resolving a pandemic situation, right? There was always going to be a bit of pain after you spend, like 2/3 of the GDP in 6 months, right?
Why have we forgotten this?
It's
no one's saying anything.
Bizarrest thing. It really is the bizarrest thing. But everybody I speak to is turnover's up, they're busy, too busy, can't hire people, need more staff. These are not the typical complaints when the economy's in the bin, that you can't hire people and you're rushed off your feet. Like, that's not what you expect. I do see, so funnily enough, not to get into politics, but I seen that the government done something to prop up pubs the other day, right? I just think pubs are dying because young people don't go to them, right? Like, culture moves, things change. Things go from being in vogue to out of vogue and back in and back out again, right? I mean, I think that the economy's doing all right. That would be my take on it. I'm not an economist.
Well, you think if the economy's doing badly, people would go and drink more, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
They thought it'd be a great time to be a publican.
But I seen that actually a stat the other day said so like 15% of beers now bought in pubs are alcohol-free ones, which is just a change. It's a change.
And I think for me, it's just that it doesn't quite add up as a model for a country at the moment, because you look at minimum wages going up to £20,000 to £25,000, which isn't enough to live in London or the big cities
No.
very easily. But you flip it onto, you know, a small business and you go 25, 30 grand as an employment
It's a killer.
for someone who in theory is the unskilled of the unskilled. You then go and you look at the people who need the skills, and, you know, someone, you know, then skill further up. It's very difficult to employ people. And we're at that precise moment in time where probably that forces people to innovate because
Yes.
you have to. And so we're probably right at that sort of juncture where it's quite painful, but what's, you know, isn't the phrase that you know, is it that you make diamonds out of pressure? I can't remember what it phrase is.
Yes, diamonds out of pressure, yeah.
Can't remember. And then so it does feel like we are just in that sort of time where
What, a crossroads, right?
Yeah.
So AI, talking about crossroads, pressure, technology, terrified of it, excited by it, but in between, where are you?
Very, very, very relaxed about it. You know, excited, just because, you know, you've been, you know, with the word accountant being linked to your to you. I've been reading articles on the BBC News for years that we're going the way of the dodo, and yet here we all are still. We find a way to make these things work for us. And the pace of change, you know, it took a pandemic, didn't it, to really accelerate the whole use of Zoom and everything else like that. Pace of change is debatable, isn't it? Some people are saying that it might be a year or two's time, nothing will be there. Probably things will still be, just because it takes a long time for things to happen. But it's a great opportunity, isn't it, really? Because, you know, a lot of the stuff it's doing isn't the most thrilling of tasks.
No.
And, you know, I think we desperately need it as a country, because, as I say, like, the model isn't really working. Everyone's getting older. We're not having, as, you know, the Ponzi scheme of let's have more people being born and they'll pay everyone else off.
That's done.
Not going to happen. So, on the bright side, it means that we're going to be younger for longer, because, you know, 33 is younger if you're not popping a load of people in behind you. But then equally, you're the one carrying the can. So we've got to do something, haven't we? Because it's like, as I sort of said, that this whole thing is, it's very difficult to employ people for businesses, and so the more that we can help get that efficiency, the better.
I agree. So, to wrap up, then, what's your three objectives for this year, and what's the three things that most excite you about the year ahead?
3 objectives for the year is just to get in front of more. But basically, it's make more friends is the honest answer. I've struggled to make friends all through my life, because I made the same friends when I was at primary school, and then that worked until I was 18, and then went to university and thought, I do not know how to make friends. You know, when I was a 4-year-old, it was all sandpits and whatnot, and so that was not the same thing at university. And I think the joys of working with our business owners is that vicariously the people you work with become
Friends.
Friends is a strong word. I'm not sure they would describe me as a friend, but people that you're able to spend time in the company of, and it not be completely awkward and terrible. And so because of what work we do, we work quite closely and intensely with our business owners. We can't not like them, otherwise it just doesn't work. So the main thing for me, looking forward to, is just meeting more and more people, because every year we do this, it gets us out and about, meeting some more people, and that's one of the great sort of privileges of that, is you get to meet some really nice people who are great fun. So that's one of the objectives for this year, is just to keep getting out and trying to find those people who are really interested in what we're interested in, have got businesses that benefit from what we do, and so largely it's just more of the same in that regard. And the other one was 3 predictions for this year. So I don't think we're going to win the World Cup. I think.
What, Scotland?
Well, I think, neither World Cup, neither the T20 World Cup, which Scotland have been drafted in at the last minute, or indeed the Football World Cup. I think Tuchel probably, I know, actually, that's sad. I'm normally predicting they're going to win everything. So, pre-predictions, it's very hard to even look 3-6 months, isn't it? Because you just think we could be having I can't call this year, because we could be having a new government tomorrow if things fall apart, you know, and that's huge on the industry. So, no, just same old. England knocked out in semi-final on penalties to the Germans.
I have one last question. Is there another accountant, fractional CFO, bookkeeper, someone adjacent who you would kind of nominate as, doing cool stuff, being a bit of a star? I always, love to ask this. Anyway.
Fractional CFO, so people in our space, as in
Yeah.
who really
Could
impress.
be a colleague, could be,
Yeah.
or like just someone you know in the industry who you think is doing some pretty cool. Yeah.
What I've just suggested. There's lots of cool things out there, but when you go to some things and you just some people leave you with things that are different to what you do, and so we work with a company called Capitalize who are focused on capital advisory areas and basically trying to help improve the whole credit stuff that we do. Went to one of their they sort of invited us to one of their conferences, or they came to one of our conferences last year. So that's a firm sort of thing, and they just when sort of you go to all these different things and people just talk at you about what they do and not really sell, but it's just sort of really tedious. And they just and just come and actually it's just very, and it's just come and entertain you and very refreshing, and just sort of showed me a really, really interesting video about sort of called Dancing Guy. If you look it up on YouTube, it's very, very good. It's about how to build a movement, and it's just about sort of about a sort of a guy who's just sort of dancing there on his own, and it's all about how do you build a movement? Well, first of all, someone's got to then go and start dancing, and then second, the most important thing is the first follower, because once that person's then got someone dancing with them, then suddenly it's a crowd or whatever, and as well as being really, really good guys, Capitalize really, really good, and what we always use different things to help with growth business, and that service is really, really helpful. But just that was one thing that really sort of stuck with me last year, and I sort of went around and showed my clients, and because I think the question is always who's impressing you, who do you rip off, who do you steal stuff from, is another way of framing it. And I just took that video and went to speak to clients, and just sort of said, it explains it quite nicely.
So you dance for your customers, is that what we're saying?
Yeah, get people dancing. Yeah, with some businesses, the goal for this year is to get their team dancing. Sometimes it's quite nice to be able to explain quite difficult concepts in a very simple simple way. So
we should do more of this.
Yeah.
Dancing at this.
I can see us being a rumba type team,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I would not be anywhere near. Yeah, my wife generally dances round me. That's the sort of thing, like whenever Strictly's on and just sort of sees the 60-year-old with just stand in the middle. And let the professional just sort of waft around. That's how we sort of deal with things at parties and the like. It's just I'm very comfortable. That's fine with me. So
I love that. What a perfect note to end on, I think.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
And the rumba recommendation.
Thanks so much, James.